So, any questions?
Do you have a candidate?
Well, we have a number of people who are interested in running, and we are in the process of interviewing those folks. I can't say the names. Hopefully, in the next few weeks, we'll be able to. Some of those folks will be announcing, and but there are multiple people who have expressed an interest, and because they believe that because of these issues, that Mark Ritchie is vulnerable.
Can you talk a little bit about the market? Where is this?
Right now, this is running on Minnesota News Network and WCCO. That's how we're beginning the ad campaign.
It starts tomorrow.
It starts tomorrow.
And how long and how much?
It's a 5-figure buy, and it's going to run through the middle of next week, Mark? Yep, through the middle of next week.
I know you don't want to rehash the recount, but it was the canvassing board that chose to have the fifth file, not Mark Ritchie.
Well, Mark Ritchie is the Secretary of State. He's supposed to be the subject matter expert on elections, okay? And the canvassing board naturally looks to the supposed subject matter expert for direction. And quite frankly, if you look at the chain of events, it was pretty obvious. First, Ritchie's against opening rejected absentee ballots, which is what the law would have. The law is pretty clear about. Then that didn't fit what the DFL or Al Franken's campaign needed, so he asks for opinions from folks. And lo and behold, Democrat Attorney General and Democrat Mike Freeman come up with a solution for this fifth pile, which then results in what we have today. The Secretary of State can't just hide behind the canvassing board. They look to him as being the subject matter expert, and he helped guide that and direct that.
So are you suggesting that he helped guide the chief judge of the Supreme Court, who was a Republican, and some other Supreme Court justice who was a Republican, and that he guided the Supreme Court and the three-judge panel as they were on this too?
What I'm suggesting is when it comes to the canvassing board, I think the other members of the canvassing board, regardless if they're Republican or Democrat, look to the Secretary of State as being the subject matter expert. And it doesn't matter to me whether they were a Republican judge or a Democrat judge, but I think that those judges naturally look to the Secretary of State in his office. That's why we think it's important that we have a Secretary of State who's above politics, who's above this. And that's why we think it's important that we elect somebody new.
You're unabashed about saying this is the start of the campaign, given the Secretary of State. There's also the generals of DFL and others of DFL. You get the sense that Ritchie is the most vulnerable of the candidates that you're shooting for?
Mark, I think you guys are going to be, this is the start of a campaign for a new Secretary of State. We're also going to be working on a new Attorney General and a new State Auditor as well. I mean, this isn't just a hyper-focus on Mark Ritchie. There happens to be an opportunity here because we think that he's vulnerable. National Secretary of States are in town. We are going to be very aggressive on these constitutional officer campaigns. These are not, in the past, I think that once an incumbent's gotten in, people have pretty much given them a free ride until the seat got opened up. We are going to be very aggressive in these constitutional officer races. This one particularly so because I think that he's opened himself up because of his partisanship.
Is this targeted more to the convention than it is to voters?
What do you mean?
Well, the timing of this, I mean, it sounds like it's targeted to this convention and trying to embarrass the Secretary of State.
It's not about embarrassing the Secretary of State, it's about informing the voters. And quite frankly, the hook is that the Secretary of States are in town, and we don't want them to walk away from this thinking that, look, we've got this sort of CYA in the Pioneer Press today, where Mark Ritchie, I guess the Barney Fife of election oversight here, that there's not a big problem, that this is like Wobegon, we got to make a few tweaks and everything's going to be okay. We want to make sure that the Secretary of States don't walk away thinking that that's the case in Minnesota. I mean, that's why we felt that this was the right time to launch this campaign.
What do you say to the voters who might say that this is just sour grapes on behalf of the Republican Party trying to get back at Mark Ritchie?
Well, it's not sour grapes. I mean, Mark Ritchie is somebody who we think, based on his record, not just on the recount, but what Mr. Broadcorp talked about as well, are some good reasons why we need to have a new Secretary of State. And you know, frankly, we think now is the time to begin that. Now that only 16 months to election day, but now is the time to start that.
Can you be more specific about the 5-figure? Give us a figure or tell us where 5 figures fall.
Well, I hate to give away the strategy, but it's I hate to give away the strategy. It's not. Help me out here, Mark.
It's closer to 5 than 6.
All There we go. Yeah, quite honestly, what we're looking at here is, this isn't just one of these little pinpricks that we do and then nothing happens for several months. This is all going to be part of an integrated campaign to go after, expose Mark Ritchie's record, but we're also going to be doing this for the other Democrat office holders as well. This isn't your grandpa's Republican Party. We're not going to just sit back and wait for things to happen. We're going to be going out there and taking it and talking about people's records. And we're not, we're going to be very aggressive in talking about people's records. And we're not going to, I'll be honest with you, we're not going to go into this sort of, tit for tat on some petty political stuff. We're going to talk about issues, we're going to talk about records, and we're going to be very aggressive about it.
There was I testified this morning at a citizen jury at the Minneapolis Hilton that Senator Hodge put together, and it was asked, and I think there was an opportunity for representatives from three political, the Independence Party, the DFL, and the Republican to testify, representing the Republican, and made it very clear to the citizen jury that was there listening to election reform issues that in my campaigns across the state for this office and for other opportunities that I've traveled, there is a great deal, I think, of raw rage and frustration out there amongst Republican activists for this recount process and how there was inconsistent standards and a variety of things. And Secretary of State Ritchie is statutorily responsible for overseeing and administrating the recount. And that, coupled with other, I think, incidents in his record over the last, since he was elected, dealing with using his official office to fund his political machinery and lying about other things, I think that are fairly going to be discussed very aggressively in the upcoming 16 months.
What responsibility does the former secretary get fired out in terms of promotional officials? She was there for 8 years before Ritchie started.
It's not Secretary of State right now. I mean, Mark Ritchie's Secretary of State. I guess it's always convenient to blame the last person, but he was in charge. He was responsible. And what was difficult about this is, again, the whole flip-flopping, which created the inconsistency, which created this whole drama on these inconsistent standards in absentee ballots. If he hadn't flip-flopped up here, all of this would have went to the courts, okay? Instead of all of the drama and all of the soap opera that went into this part of it, which they got the result that they wanted.
So the previous secretary has no bearing on the situation.
I don't think that the person who was there before has any bearing on it, because the person who's there now is the one responsible.
When will you start the ads for the Attorney General?
Sooner than you think. I mean, we're working very. We want to win in 2010. I hope I don't want to take the focus off this story. We want to win in 2010, and we're doing the things right now organizationally. We're trying to also go out there and let people know where these folks stand. The Democrats own the whole thing, except for Governor Wentz. They got super majorities in the House and the Senate. They got all the constitutional officers. I mean, we've got a responsibility to talk about their records, to let people know our side of the story.
Do you have any plans to attend the National Civics that's preceding the Secretary of State's?
No, I don't.
We find it ironic at all that they're talking about civility and everybody should hug each other.
Well, actually, sure. When they get the result that they like, everybody wants to do a kumbaya. I mean, I think the Democrat ED today was very satisfied with the election process. Of course they would be. They got what they wanted. We're not going to pretend. We're not going to pretend this is Lake Wobegon. We just got a couple things we got to fix. We're not going to. We live in the real world. My favorite part of Disney World is Adventureland, not Fantasyland. Great.
On that
Thanks.
note, thanks.
Thanks a lot, guys.